A little bit more about myself. Like I said, I'm the current National Professionals College Initiative Chair. I'm a data engineer for Central Federal Services, which I spent like the last 4 years working for them in DC, but now I relocated to Texas and I work remote. Got my bachelor's of chemical engineering from Texas Tech, 2017. And if you really want to know me, I'll tell you the music I listen to. And in this order, my favorites will be Lauryn Hill, Kanye, Outkast, Tupac, and Kendrick. So, of course, it's not a NSBE thing without saying the NSBE mission. So I'll say it for us. And the mission of NSBE is to increase the number of culturally responsible Black engineers who excel academically, succeed professionally, and positively impact the community. Right. And my experience in NSBE, I was the chapter president at Texas Tech, and I moved on to be like the Region 2 College Initiative Chair, and now I'm on the National Board for Professionals. And that's kind of a question I've always had, when reading the mission, like, what does it mean to be culturally responsible? And kind of throughout my time in NSBE, what I've seen in that field is kind of like, this is probably one of the things that summarizes best how NSBE would take that stand to be culturally responsible. We have this website, socialjustice.nsbe.org. So NSBE's call for justice, and it reads, our community has experienced too many injustices that have been promoted by systematic racism and institutionalized oppression. The unnecessary and premature deaths of countless unarmed Black people at the hands of those meant to protect and serve vividly illuminate a pattern of white supremacy and perpetual racism built over more than 400 years of subjugation by individuals, institutions, and systems, and what author Jim Willis called America's original sin. As Black engineers, our job stretches beyond being an advocate for diversity and inclusion in STEM. Our duty lies with the advancement of all things Black, including the fight for justice for those we have seen perish due to racism. All right. And I think that's a really good statement, right? But adding to that, just knowing Maya Angelou, she has this quote saying, "You can't really know where you're going until you know where you have been," right? So just like the importance of history. So this is why the NSBE Create program was started. So NSBE Create is an acronym for Culturally Responsible Economic and Technical Empowerment. And it's one part book club and tough discussion space with the goal of painting a picture of the depth and magnitude of Black America's socioeconomical predicament, right? And then it's the second part of using our engineering skills to get Black America out of this identified predicament. So more project-based, and this is kind of what we're doing tonight. So when we're having these discussions, we have a few rules: to be open-minded, fully understand and empathize with opposing points, have logical counterpoint, be respectful, and try not to take things personally, right? Because we're just trying to really solve problems. It's math, right? So kind of the books we've read started probably like August 2020. So we've read a good amount. The highlights being the first graduate from Harvard, W.B. Du Bois, The Souls of Black Folk is the first book we read. We got really into J.A. Rogers, which is another figure around in like the Harlem Renaissance area or time period, where he wrote a lot about Black history. He has this book called Nature Knows No Color Line, Research into the Negro Ancestry and the White Race. And he's talking about how much of a social construct race is, just on the fact that there's so much miscegenation, interbreeding between the races. So we got into the Haitian Revolution, Toussaint Louverture, the biggest, largest slave rebellion, and talking about the country Haiti, and even how it looks today. And we read a whole bunch of stuff, but I guess the other ones I would know is The Miseducation of the Negro, Powernomics by Dr. Clyde Anderson. We even read, trying to more current stuff, Bitcoin and Black America. And coming up this Sunday, we're going to be reading the 1619 Project. Okay, so that's going to be led by Region 3, but we'll talk more about that. So I have a question for you all, and this is how we're going to vote later. So if you could all just make sure this all works for you and use your phones and get a little hover over the QR code, and then just drop, kind of, what does it mean to be culturally responsible to you? Maybe just a word you think of, or yeah, maybe you have a whole spill. Okay, so we got a few people that want to interact, or maybe you're just trying to figure it out. Okay, here we go. Oh yeah, where's my mouse? Okay, so to consistently find new ways to introduce the younger generation to STEM, understanding the foundation of field, using, okay, this is coming in too fast for me. To show up and do the best that we can at whatever job we are assigned. Mentor others, to leave it better than I found it, to share information, preserve meaning, and don't forget where it all came from. I like that one. To me, this means to positively and accurately represent Black power and excellence, especially in professional environments. To consistently find new ways to introduce the younger generation to STEM, using what you have to create a positive change in your community. Understanding the foundation of the field, creating technology that is accommodating to all identities, to guide others, to design requirements for inclusion, about family culture. Okay, cool. So thank you all for sharing. We'll come back to Slido at the end of this. Taking time to understand our culture, taking the time to understand, okay. Cool. So more about the program, just our goals. So like we're doing right now, we want to bring together all NSBE demographics to have a relevant conversation about our responsibilities to the culture and identifying community issues. We also want to promote actions and opportunities that will solve generational problems in Black communities. And kind of what I mentioned earlier, like reading and writing is thinking. So we're trying to start these conversations by reading, right? So we can better inform ourselves to problem solve. Medium term, we're gonna have indirect mentorship from exchange of knowledge during meetings. NSBE creates and embraces a manifesto detailing cultural responsibilities that lead to the economic development of Black communities. So that's what when I'm asking you, like, what does it mean to be culturally responsible? We're working to like define that for NSBE, because like you're seeing, everybody kind of has a different perspective on what that means. But as we move forward in the Game Change 2025, I think it's very important that we define our mission very clearly. And there's something like the manifesto will help. All right, let me slow down a little bit. So long-term goals, NSBE is an organization that plays an active role in creating the future we want for children. We're measuring this by the number of businesses, buildings, engineering projects, and jobs NSBE assists in creating. And ultimately, NSBE is known in households as an organization that has a clear and explicit stance on what it means to be culturally responsible. All right, and especially in this time period, all these corporations are coming to NSBE and just like, how can we help? And tonight we're going to try to develop ideas where they can give all the resources to, right, and help. So here we are. Yeah, NSBE Creates the Future. So what's going to happen right now is that we're going to break out into teams, and you'll have 50 minutes to use PowerPoint or Google Slides to create a deck for your proposal. Within your teams, you're going to need to assign some roles. So there's going to need to be a scribe. Someone's going to share their screen and create the slide deck. We have the master of ceremony, keep time and keep the team on task. And we'll need a presenter, so that who's going to present the proposal at the end. And you have 3 minutes to do so. So getting into the prompts, I'm going to attach kind of the document I've been sharing in the chat, but also I sent it to your emails. And yeah, you can look at this for yourself. But the prompt is, President Biden's administration has advanced legislation to reward African Americans with reparations for the past atrocities committed. Examples being chattel slavery, Jim Crow, miseducation, and COINTELPRO. NSBE has been encouraged by the administration to bid for government contracts, implement engineering solutions with the potential to improve the quality of life for Black communities over the next 7 generations. What should NSBE create? And so pretty much in your time, in your working sessions, you'll be trying to answer these questions. You'll need to have, and these need to be included in your proposal. So you'll have your proposal title, your proposal location, so selecting a specific neighborhood or community. What generational problem do you want to solve in that community? And how will your solution impact 7 generations later for your selected community? So this is like, we're thinking big, right? But then we want to come and just say, okay, what can we do now? What can we do small? So what are the project's goals for the next year, 2023? All right.
Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Justin. I'm joined by Daniel, Dr. Fraser, and Chi-Chi, and we'll be presenting the NSBE 1 project. So to start off, that's talking about what's the problem that we're addressing, and it is the unproportionate marginalization of Black people's access to wealth through real estate. And that's really looking at the systemic and historical marginalization of the Black community and looking at how we are going to build solutions through a firm that we are starting to bring access, education, support, and advocacy, as well as some sustainable engineering solutions to support this problem. So our project will be centered around the DC, Brownsville, New York, and Cleveland area. And the goals are to build sustainable housing, smart homes, luxurious homes in Black communities, convert communities that aren't up to scale to make them even more sustainable, as well as making up and coming, improving the wealth gap, and increasing home ownership for Black Americans to grow the wealth gap and build generational wealth for years to come. Yeah.
Thank you, Justin. In order to create these buildings, we're going to start by creating incorporating our own company, which will hire the engineers of color, software engineers, electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, and more to create houses in the different areas where we're starting, Washington, D.C., Brooklyn, and the Cleveland area. These jobs will have full benefits, healthcare, and also give access to the different housing projects we're going to be starting in each neighborhood. Next. And just as an example, first we want to start out by actually buying homes that majority of Black people live in that may be low income or project buildings, and renovating them to be more modern. And say if they've already put in 20 years of rent, have that apply to their mortgage. I'm gonna pass it to my teammate, Chi-Chi.
Our 3 target locations are Brownsville, Brooklyn, Washington, D.C., and Cleveland, Ohio, due to their high percentage of African-American community members. Next slide. And the first thing that we plan to do as our goal in 2023 is to plan for a temporary living space for these community members to live in while their home gets refurbished and rebranded.
And so I would add to that we'll also be looking for foundations, angel investors, minority owned businesses, especially construction companies, all of those type things to help us with the financing of what will be necessary for these new units.
And so just to encapsulate everything that we talked about, so for the goals that we want to end up with is to, again, convert underrepresented communities to make them more affluent, as well as to identify areas for growth where we can expand and invest in real estate and continue to grow the Black community, as well as just spreading education and financial literacy to just give people the opportunity and education on these topics to grow their own wealth and build that sustainable labor force that Daniel was talking about.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
How did you decide on the locations?
So 3 out of 4 of us are from Region 1. That's how we targeted, or at least targeted the region that we wanted to focus on. That's where DC and Brownsville came up, because those are our locations with high amounts of project communities in Region 1.
So ours, the title of it is Shine Young Minds. Basically, it's a talent agency by me, Mike, and then Annalicia. And the goal of this, in layman's, is just to recruit, train, and then prepare underrepresented youth for careers in STEM or engineering. So the initiative, like the location, we got this based off of the data that we want to get, and specifically where we want to get it from is like foster care facilities or like social services, not limited to those, but just those were like the places we thought that have like the data we were looking for to help like access the youth that we want. And we chose metropolitan cities like Chicago, Atlanta, DC area, just because they would have, like on a state level, they will also have some data that we could access to help reach these youth as well, compared to like a rural area where there might not be as many resources or data that we could use to find the children or like youth that we're targeting. And then also, just to add a note, we did not include at-risk youth at this time, only because that would kind of like further complicate things, and just we wanted to like focus on the technical aspects, because we're engineers, opposed to like with at-risk children, you might need like the intervention of like clinicians and things, just to understand, like just to make sure the kids like is being serviced in the, you know, like right fashion. Okay. So the problem statement, Black youth can be subject to spaces where they may not be given the tools they need, like in STEM, and this can lead them to shy away from or not develop a large interest in fields related to math and science. And this initiative aims to increase exposure to STEM students for the communities that need it. So basically, we're going to be like the boots on the ground, like actually contacting these students once we get the data that we need from like the foster care and like social services type of facilities. So for our impact, by altering the experience of one person, this can change the trajectory of their history, i.e. generational wealth, and then also creating STEM leaders produced by underserved communities. So like in turn, once these students come through the pipeline and have their own careers in STEMs, they can turn back around and become mentors and help push the pipeline further for other students in their communities as well. And then finally, the goal for us first year would be to build relationships with database gatekeepers. And then from there, we build a beta/prototype of a company model, and then develop experiments and case studies based on this data. And then finally, just to understand best ways to relate with prospective communities. And thank you. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, I'll say good job. My question would be, how did you make the connection to STEM to generational wealth?
You said from STEM to generational wealth?
Yeah, I mean, because I'm thinking like, yeah, STEM might get you a job, but that doesn't mean generational wealth.
But from there, like, you have to understand like the salaries and stuff that these students could be having, like all the education, all of that can be passed down to someone else through like just knowing how to invest better. Like I feel like once these students are in that position to like be an engineer or anywhere in STEM, they can then teach other students how to be making competitive salaries similar to that. And then also, you know, just benefit like students coming in the pipeline. I just feel like reaching that higher education will make it easier to help, you know, these students, like previous students as well. And then like if my team wants to add to that question, feel free, Annalise or Mike.
Yeah, I would love to add to that. So I wanted to say that I actually spoke with someone a couple weeks ago who is a solutions engineer. He is probably one of the first people in his family to make over 6 figures, but he's making currently in the heavy $300,000 per year. And so, you know, with the companies that he is working for and that are trying to recruit him, they are offering as a part of their like packages, like shares, parts of the company, right? And so, you know, when you are being offered things like that, things that translate into, you know, money later, like investments, that can build generational wealth. So, you know, increasing the access to opportunities like that, companies like that, those things are really what can build generational wealth.
Yeah, and I have a comment on it also, CJ, is that from what I've heard and believe is that the best investment is in oneself. So the wealth is in oneself, as opposed to those who don't know. Those who do know will definitely do a lot better. Also, STEM careers would open up different networks of people too, because the only way you can acquire wealth is to know how to get it. So just by networking with people who do have wealth, one would find out how to get wealth, because that's how the wealthy are wealthy, because of the knowledge transfer within that network.
Our concept was rebuilding Black communities, and then our tagline was build back, build Black. And our specific location was McDougall Terrace in Durham, North Carolina. And we came up with that location because just yesterday, they just said that they're going to be moving out the residents of McDougall Terrace to redo the housing there. So they had a carbon monoxide leak a couple years ago. People got sick, a child died. They're going to redo the whole thing. But our concern is that when they redo the whole building, that they're not going to move those residents back. McDougall Terrace is a predominantly Black Section 8 housing community in the middle of downtown Durham. It's right next to North Carolina Central University. So it's prime real estate, and we just don't want it to be gentrified like the rest of Durham is. So our concept is to rebuild the community as a modern community, solar, electric, agricultural, sustainable community that people can pass down to their children. It's going to be housing, the actual houses that people will eventually own and pass down, create generational wealth that way. These are just some of the utilities and amenities that we were thinking about that required engineering know-how, and also employing Black-owned companies in the area to help rebuild this community. And our 2023 plans would be to come up with a prototype community that these residents can temporarily move into, get to know what to expect from this newly rebuilt community before they move back, if they want to. And then also doing more research, and then more planning, and then connecting with the city officials and those who are already involved in the McDougall Terrace redoing project. So some of the hurdles that we might face is the resistance to change from the residents, and increased and unsustainable housing costs for returning residents, but we're hoping to offset that in some way, the true availability of funds coming from the government, and then the overall complexity of the complex. And then here's just a picture of McDougall Terrace here. And this is all McDougall Terrace in relation to North Carolina Central University. So it's very close, very prime real estate. We don't want the university to take over and those residents can't move back. And then that's just the link of what's actually happening at McDougall Terrace. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. So, go ahead.
I was just saying, kind of in line with what Group 1 was saying, but in a more specific location.
Okay, I like it. So I guess my question would just be like on getting the engineers you need. Did y'all think through how you're gonna find the people to do the work?
RTP, Research Triangle Professionals, is one of the most active chapters in Region 2. We've won multiple awards. I don't mean to brag, but we're a very active community and we have lots of engineers. I don't think finding the engineers would be a problem to help, especially if there's funding, especially, if these are paid jobs, we're committing our free time to helping the Black community. So if there's a stipend or money involved, it just gets easier.
Also, to piggyback on that, I work for Stantec, one of the global architectural engineering companies in the world, and we're working with all the NSBE chapters across the country, and we are looking to hire a lot of engineers, especially a lot of NSBE engineers. We're also working with NOMA to hire a lot of architects. So we have offices in North Carolina, and so we are really looking to do a lot of good things for the Black community.
So our idea was for a Black Renaissance Center. This is me, Michaela, Ashley, and Taylor who came up with this idea. Next
Hey,
slide.
Donna, I'm sorry to interrupt. Can y'all see my screen? I think you can. Okay, for sure. You can keep going, Brianna, sorry.
Okay, are you gonna control the slides for me? I'll just say next slide.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, next slide. So we decided the central location to start off would be in Houston, more so because of the central location of it, and it is a very large and diverse city. And so we know that we could get a lot of support and to kind of kickstart it and jump it off, and that there'd be more participation in the area we're more familiar with as well. And so our long-term goal would be to expand to other cities. Some other ideas were Tulsa, Florida. We actually came up with this idea because we kind of want to eventually come up with like another Black Wall Street. So it's kind of dedicated to the Tulsa race massacre. So next slide. The generational problem we're trying to solve is the fact that, well, it came directly from the NSBE mission, and that a lot of students, especially from middle school and high school, they're not getting that early exposure to STEM and even being encouraged. And it kind of even if it's just because they don't see enough Black faces, maybe they don't have Black classmates or teachers, and so it's not something they're interested in, or maybe their school doesn't even offer the advanced like math and science skills early on in order for them to be exposed and even find out that they're interested in that. And it's hard to kind of get started in a career when no one in your family can even expose you to it. So just to come up with a kind of place where students can first get together and eventually work their way up and become engineers or be like a scientist and get involved in STEM. And so the impact for 7 generations later, it would be that there would be more Black people in STEM, and then we would eventually come to like own and create our own businesses and have it be owned and for Black people. And it would also increase the graduation rate, and not only in have them graduate high school, but to also choose to major in STEM in college. And it would eventually expand to community with different departments. So like our idea is to kind of have a community center or research center. Can you go to the next slide? And okay, yes, is to have a community center kind of similar to NASA, the NASA Space Center here. They have many activities and kind of a lot of field trips there where kids can see different activities and also get to view rocket ships or any other like fun interactive activities that kind of make you want to become an astronaut and things like that. So that this community center though would be for engineering. And then it would also showcase, if anybody's ever been to the Smithsonian Black History Museum, the way they have the different sections. I was thinking more of the, if anybody's seen the singing, like the, how did I forget, Motown part of it with artists and things like that, but this would be for Black scientists, inventors, and engineers, and you'd be able to see all the things they created firsthand and have people kind of donating so we can see different artifacts and things like that of what Black scientists have actually created. And so the different programs that would be held there could be tutoring, more so starting off short term and be for middle school and high school. And so it'd be almost an after school program to offer tutoring and get them exposure to math and science. And then also have like a little summer camp being put on there. And then certification courses. So eventually we'd like to work our way up and have it also be for adults. So while the kids are there learning, then adults could also be getting certification courses or just fiscal responsibility learning courses, and also engineering and coding and things like that, so they could get certification and be able to also come into the STEM field, even though they are not young, like really young, but it's not too late for them to be involved in that field. And so there'd also be different things, different interactive workshops and things like computer programming and cyber security. These are technology is a field that's really growing right now. And so that's would be kind of the main focus, right, of the center. And so there'd also be in-person and virtual elements. And so we were thinking like a metaverse, what Facebook is doing right now, opportunities, even if you can't come there in person, even though eventually we'd have research centers in other cities, you can join and do different activities, such as like building a motherboard or something that can still be done virtually. And so then it'd give us more exposure and reach a larger demographic that way. And it would target professional development. And so we were thinking a community center like that would provide jobs. You need lawyers, instructors, different teachers and things like that there. And so that's a way to provide jobs as well. And our long-term goals would be a larger summer program, and we'd eventually partner up with different neighboring organizations and universities. And so those universities could offer courses like dual credit. And we were also thinking sort of just to kind of incentivize high school students to attend, but then there'd also be an element of community service, different activities that target different fields of engineering. And so we were thinking neighborhood restoration. And so that would be helping. So one member of our group brought up how the Links, they were getting together and actually rebuilding a highway in their city. And so just to be able to kind of give back to your own community and kind of make it flourish and look like a great city and like the way that you know it is because of the great people that are living there, it should look presentable like that as well. So to be able to paint murals or even like rebuild a highway or road that you see and kind of give back to your own community would be another great sector of our overall center. And so that would be good for anyone who wants to be a civil engineer and things like that. So it connects to different engineering fields as well. Are there any more slides? Or if you want to go back to the 2023 slide.
Well, let me go back.
Okay, so our more short-term goals would be to first find a building for it. And so at first we were saying construction, but then we realized a more feasible goal could even be to buy a building that already exists and then just renovate it further. And then create a full calendar with monthly events. So almost like a club workshop sign up kind of thing to kind of get out into the community, get word spread, and so that we have a lot of participation in it. And I already mentioned the hiring and providing jobs and the establishing partnerships there.
So to end this, we're gonna vote and see which idea y'all like the best. So we'll do that through the Slido app again. So you can get your phones out, QR, and then pick team 1, 2, 3, or 5, which I should have changed to be y'all's team's names, but forgive me. And then we'll just do a little debrief. Kind of talk about the highlights, lessons learned, and that'll be that.
I'm sorry, CJ, can we get a brief reminder of each group again? Because people like me, I don't have memory.
Team 1 was NSBE 1. They're in Brownsville, DC, and Cleveland. Team 2 was Alicia.
Shine Young Minds.
Shine Young Minds. Okay, Jeremy presented. Team 3 was in North Carolina with Ray. And then team 5, we just heard Brianna present on. All right, let's see what we got. Team 5. Okay, so we like what's going on in Houston. Okay, and congratulations, you won, pat on the back. Again, thank you all for participating. I mean, it's really not about, the winners and losers, it's just about going through this thought process and coming together to have these conversations. But of course, like I was saying, we want to keep building on these conversations and, bring these ideas into fruition, which is not gonna happen overnight, right? It's gonna be a long-term thing. So, yeah, let's just talk kind of lessons learned debrief. So I'll just ask the question, anybody can come off mute and answer. What ideas discussed tonight should more NSBE members be made aware of?
I like the first opening question that you asked us, where you basically asked us like what we thought that NSBE meant by to culturally responsible Black engineers. That whole question, I feel like more members of NSBE should be asked that question, so that we can get a better idea of what the organization as a whole, as we progress and as we grow, feel about NSBE in general and our mission.
Okay. Anybody want to add to that? All right, cool. And then I will ask this question. Did this event influence your understanding of what it means to be a culturally responsible Black engineer? And if so, how?
So this is Mike. Now I'm older, and I just want to say that it's like it makes me feel real good because the presentations were presentations of young people who are looking to give back. I mean, that's the best way I could say that. It's like the young people who are participating today. They look outside of their immediate circle, and they're looking at the Black community as a whole. And to me, it shows that they are comfortable and confident in their role in society. And it just makes me feel good as an older person who's on his way out and making room for the young people. And I just want to thank y'all.
All right, so I'm just gonna last call. Anybody you want to leave us with anything before we get out of here?
I want to add something. Before this call, I had the perception that culturally responsible had more to do with what engineers contributed, like more just like society as a whole, like consumers. But when the SlideGo poll came out and people were talking about contributing to their community and passing down information to help better and advance the Black community as a whole, that completely shifted my perception of the NSBE mission statement. So I just wanted to share what I learned from that.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear it. All right.
Yeah, I also wanted to add a comment as well. So I think that a lot of people, they really grow and blossom into this like amazing engineer and professional through NSBE. I started out as a freshman. I had zero skills on how to talk to companies. And, academically, I had challenges as well too, but I was able to find community in NSBE, mentors, etc. And I was able to really grow. And I think that, being a professional almost 4 years since I graduated, not as many of us are as active in NSBE as we used to be. So, you know, I was chapter president, went up to regional board, and, you know, I graduated and haven't done much with NSBE afterwards, but I still give back in a capacity in other means and ways, but I know a lot of people that don't really do that. So I think it's important to, you know, take what you learned and still teach other people. That's your cultural responsibility in order to make sure that more Black people continue to become engineers or inspire them to become scientists or, you know, go into the STEM field. So I think that's what it means to be culturally responsible. Don't just do it for yourself, but also like inspire and try to help other people so that they can achieve that as well.
Awesome. All right. Last call.
You know, I think just to even have the conversation, you know, just to put in the thought, how you're thinking about your career, how you think about your community, your trade, and even just the term that NSBE came up with, a holistic engineer. You know, I haven't heard that before until I came, you know, to NSBE. You know, so it makes you think more. I mean, a lot of the thinking I already had, but it made me even think more and harder. You know, what am I doing that can really help, you know, the community, you know, the how can I pass on the knowledge that I have to other people that they can benefit as well.
Cool. All right. Yep. So yeah, I thank you all. I mean, because you know, you're sharing your perspectives is really helping. We're all learning from each other, right? And it's a beautiful thing to watch happen because I think of, you know, like the word culture literally, like just kind of maybe like a scientifically, like a bacteria, and try to have it in an incubator so it grows. And I feel like this space is an incubator, right? So we'll just keep on pushing it.